proportions. He thus makes 3 curves, each covering 3/4 of the circle. He should give the sign of the emperor on passing the kidlock, or direction of bull skin. This picks up the force naturally radiating from that point, projects it in the direction of the path of the magician. The sigils are those given in the Equinox Volume I, number 7. Plate X outside the square, the signs those shown in Volume I, number 2. Plate the signs of the grades. In these 1 and invocations he should expand his girth and his stature to the utmost of the elemental god. Of the quarter. After this, he begins to vibrate the barbarous names of the ritual. Now let him not only fill his whole being to the uttermost with the force of the names, but let him formulate his will, understood thoroughly as the dynamic aspect of his creative self, in an appearance symbolically apt. I say not in the form of a ray of light, of a fiery sword, or of aught save that bodily vehicle of the Holy Ghost which is sacred to Baphomet, by its virtue that concealeth the lion and the serpent, that his image may appear adorably upon the earth forever. Let then the adept extend his will beyond the circle in this imagined shape, and let it radiate with the light proper to the element invoked, and let each word issue along the shaft with passionate impulse, as if its voice gave command thereto that it should thrust itself leapingly forward. Let also each word accumulate authority, so that the head of the shaft may plunge twice as far for the second word as for the first, and 4 times for the third as the second, and thus to the end. Moreover, let the adept fling forth his whole consciousness thither. Then at the final word, let him bring rushing back his will within himself, steadily streaming, and let him offer himself to its point, as Artemis to Pan, that this perfectly pure concentration of the element purge him thoroughly, and possess him with its passion. In this sacrament, being wholly at one with that element, let the adept utter the charge hear me, and make etc. with strong sense that this unity with that quarter of the universe confers upon him the fullest freedom and privilege pertinent thereto. Let the adept take note of the wording of the charge. The firmament is the ruach, the mental plane. It is the realm of Shu, or Zeus, where revolves the wheel of the gunas, the 3 forms. Ether is the akasha, the spirit, the ether or physics, which is the framework on which all forms are founded. It receives, records and transmits all impulses without itself suffering mutation thereby. The earth is the sphere wherein the operation of these fundamental and etheric forces appears to perception. Under the earth is the world of those phenomena which inform those perceived projections, and determine their particular character. Dry land is the place of dead material things, dry i.e. unknowable because unable to act on our minds. Water is the vehicle whereby we feel such things, there men strewn wherein these feelings are mentally apprehended. It is called whirling because of the instability of thought, and the fatuity of reason, on which we are yet dependent for what we call life. Rushing fire is the world in which wandering thought burns up to swift darting will. These 4 stages explain how the non-ego is transmuted into the ego. A spell of God is any form of consciousness, and a scourge any form of action. The charge, as a whole, demands for the adept the control of every detail of the universe which his angel has created as a means of manifesting himself to himself. It covers command of the primary projection of the possible in individuality, in the antithetical artifice which is the device of mind, and in a balanced triplicity of modes or states of being whose combinations constitute the characteristics of cosmos. It includes also a standard of structure, the rigidity to make reference possible. Upon these foundations of condition which are not things in themselves, but the canon to which things conform, is builded the temple of being, whose materials are themselves perfectly mysterious, inscrutable as the soul, and like the soul imagining themselves by symbols, which we may feel, perceive, and adapt to our use without ever knowing the whole truth about them. The adept sums up all these items by claiming authority over every form of expression possible to existence. whether it be a spell idea or a scourge act of God that is of himself. The adept must accept every spirit, every spell, every scourge as part of his environment, and make them all subject to himself. That is, consider them as contributory causes of himself. They have made him what he is. They correspond exactly to his own faculties. They are all, ultimately, of equal importance. The fact that he is what he is proves that each item is equilibrated. The impact of each new impression affects the entire system in 2. Assuming the form and the consciousness. 3. Of being the measure. He must therefore realize that every event is subject to him. It occurs because he had need of it. Iron rusts because the molecules demand oxygen for the satisfaction of their tendencies. They do not crave hydrogen. Therefore, combination with that gas is an event which does not happen. All experiences contribute to make us complete in ourselves. We feel ourselves subject to them so long as we fail to recognize this. When we do, we perceive that they are subject to us. And whenever we strive to evade an experience, whatever it may be, we thereby do wrong to ourselves. We thwart our own tendencies. To live is to change, and to oppose change is to revolt against the law which we have enacted to govern our lives. To resent destiny is thus to abdicate our sovereignty, and to invoke death. Indeed, we have decreed the doom of death for every breach of the law of life, and every failure to incorporate any impression starts that particular faculty which stood in need of it. This section B invokes there in the East, with a shaft of golden glory. 1. This is an assumption based on Liberaliges II, 78 and III, 34. Liber 536. B80RAXORENOBOKOSMOMAXI8. Salt of alchemy, Desaviates, Rajas, and Tamas in the Hindu system, and are rather modes of action than actual qualities even when conceived as latent. They are the apparatus of communication between the planes. As such, they are conventions. There is no absolute validity in any means of mental apprehension, but unless we make these spirits of the firmament subject unto us by establishing right relation within the possible limits with the universe, we shall fall into error when we develop our new instrument of direct understanding. It is vital that the adept should train his intellectual faculties to tell him the truth, in the measure of their capacity. To despise the mind on account of its limitations is the most disastrous blunder. It is the common cause of the calamities which strew so many shores with the wreckage of the mystic armada. Bigotry, arrogance, bewilderment, all forms of mental and moral disorder, so often observed in people of great spiritual attainment, have brought the path itself into discredit. Almost all such catastrophes are due to trying to build the temple of the spirit without proper attention to the mental laws of structure and the physical necessities of foundation. The mind must be brought to its utmost pitch of perfection, but according to its own internal properties. 1. Cannot feed a microscope on mutton chops. It must be regarded as a mechanical instrument of knowledge, independent of the personality of its possessor. One must treat it exactly as one treats one's electroscope or one's eyes, one influence of one's wishes. A physician calls in a colleague to attend to his own family, knowing that personal anxiety may derange his judgment. The microscopist who trusts his eyes when his pet theory is at stake may falsify the facts, and find too late that he has made a fool of himself. In the case of initiations itself, history is scarred with the wounds inflicted by this dagger. It reminds us constantly of the danger of relying upon the intellectual faculties. The judge must know the law in every point, and be detached from personal prejudices, and incorruptible, or iniquity will triumph. Dogma, with persecution, delusion, paralysis of progress, and many another evil, has its satraps, has always established the tyranny when genius has proclaimed it. Islam, making a bonfire of written wisdom, and heckle-forging biological evidence, physicists ignorant of radioactivity disputing the conclusions of geology, and theologians impatient of truth struggling against the tide of thought, all such must perish at the hands of their own error in making their minds internally defective. or externally deflected, the measure of the universe. Section C. The adept now invokes fire in the south, flame-red are the rays that burst from his thorundum. Section D. He invokes water in the west, his wand billowing forth blue radiance. Section E. To having experience with success in the practices of 3 they correspond to the sulfur, mercury, and he goes to the north to invoke earth, flowers of green flame flash from his weapon. As practice makes the adept perfect in this work, it becomes automatic to attach all these complicated ideas and intentions to their correlated words and acts. When this is attained, he may go deeper into the formula by amplifying its correspondences. Thus, he may invoke water in the manner of water, extending his will with majestic and irresistible motion, mindful of its impulse gravitation, yet with a suave and tranquil appearance of weakness. Again, he may apply the formula of water to its peculiar purpose as it surges back into his sphere, using it with conscious skill for the cleansing and calming of the receptive and emotional elements in his character, and for the solution or sweeping away of those tangled weeds of prejudice which hamper him from freedom to act as he will. Similar applications of the remaining invocations will occur to the adept who is ready to use them. Section F. The adept now returns to the tick or F square of his tau, and invokes spirit, facing toward bold skin, by the active pentagrams, the sigil called the mark of the beast, and the signs of LVXC plate as before. He then vibrates the names extending his will in the same way as before, but vertically upward. At the same time he